guys, I'm really looking forward to this one now. This is Jim Cornette from Inside the Ropes. This is him telling some road stories regarding Undertaker and some others. And I want to clear something up real quick. A lot of you have been under the impression, at least this is what I've been told, that you think I don't care for Cornette because of that video I had made earlier about my entirely different take on the current state of wrestling. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have nothing but huge amounts of respect for Jim Cornette. I mean, the things he's done in this business, the things he's accomplished in this business, for me, it's impossible not to respect him. And I think he's an amazingly good storyteller, and I love listening to his tales. Just because I disagree with him on certain topics doesn't mean I dislike the guy. Sure, again, is he somebody I want to hang out with? No, but I'm probably not somebody he wants to hang out with either. So there. I mean, but I have nothing but respect for the dude, and I can't wait to hear him tell more stories. Oh, and there are a lot of things about the business in which I completely agree with him. Just its current state is not one of them. And the whole thing with kayfabe is not one of them.
I've got one Undertaker story that's funny, and then one
I'm looking forward to this.
That may be even funnier. I like the Undertaker story that when Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin wrestled at WrestleMania 98, and Mike Tyson was the referee, right?
Remember that distinctly?
Nobody knew whether Michaels was going to do business the right way because he was in one of his fucking snits.
See, now we've already hit, and again, I was going to say, don't send me hate. You can send me hate if you want. We're already in agreement because I was never, just from what I knew of Shawn Michaels' reputation from, talking with guys who've been in the locker room with him, never was a fan.
And he had come to town late to Boston, and he had bodyguards
stuff
with him, and he was talking about unsafe work conditions, and is he going to do the finish or whatever. And when they went to the ring, Undertaker had already finished wrestling.
That's what I mean about.
He came out. He'd partially changed, and he
I
came
like
out
the way
and sat right
Cornette
down that
tells
chair
the story.
at the gorilla position, watching the monitor, and he had his fist taped up. And he sat there and watched that whole match. And finally, when Tyson boom and Michaels went down, and Austin did the thing and pinned him 1, 2, 3, he stood up and unwrapped his hands and walked back to the locker room.
That's some ominous shit right there. I would genuinely not want to be the guy that Undertaker was wrapping his hand.
Because if you were coming from the ring, unless you went out the front door onto 42nd Street in New York in your underwear, you had to come right by that table. And if Michaels had not done business the right way, he would have not got past that fucking table. Now, everybody said, why did he tape his fist?
Wow.
It's because is Shawn Michaels' face worth breaking your fucking knuckles on?
No,
I think not.
Absolutely not.
But
it's funny he says that. I did a spot one night. I won't go into great details, but there were some kids talking shit to some of the greener guys. Well, oh, this is so fake, blah, blah, blah. So I went out there with my buddy Punk, and I was going to have him throw a couple of real punches right above my eye. And first thing I told him, go wrap your hands because the knuckles will give before my skull. I have tape of that.
But my favorite Undertaker story is when he'd first come in, and Terry Funk named him Mean Mark Callis because when Sid had got hurt again, it was Sid and Danny Spivey were the skyscrapers in WCW. Sid got hurt again, and we needed another skyscraper. Well, once again,
I'm sure Sid didn't want to get hurt.
Dutch Mantell had known, he started in Texas, Mark did, and he had worked down there. He was huge, and he had plugged him to me, and I said, this guy's got a lot of potential. So he's tall enough. We got a skyscraper.
What are
we going to call him? Mark Calloway sounds. And Terry Funk said, how about Mean Mark Callis, like he's callous and evil? Okay, that's good enough for rock and roll. So
I remember that. I remember when he was Mean Mark Callis. That's pretty cool.
We bring him in one of the first TVs he's going to. He needs a ride from Atlanta over to Alabama. We're doing the TBS TV, so he hops in the car with me and Bob Eaton and Stan Lane. And we stopped at this little convenience store on the way to like Anniston, Alabama, or whatever podunk town we were doing the TV in. And I'm very bug phobic. I don't like bugs, right? Stan Lane knows this. So while we get out at the convenience
store, I like hearing
store,
these names I haven't heard in a while, like Stan Lane.
And it's humid. They got huge fucking bugs. I mean, bugs that, will carry your fucking bag off if you set it down. And so Stan, unbeknownst to me, he gets one of these big bugs about that big laying on the ground dead, and he puts it, because I'm sitting in the back seat. Mark's in the front passenger seat. Stan's driving, and Bobby's over here next to me. He puts the bug right on the back
good
seat
shit.
in the car. So when I get in with my soft
love
drink and my
ribs.
fucking Twinkie or whatever I've got, and I sit down, I'm not looking. And Mark gets in the front, and Bobby gets in the side, and Stan gets in, and then Stan looks behind right next to me and does this face, goes. And of course I go, oh, Jesus Christ. And I jump out and throw the door open to get away from this fucking giant alien bug. And when I throw the door open so fucking hard as I'm getting out, it bounces back.
Bounces
and hits
back.
Me in the fucking head. Now I'm mad at the fucking door. Now I'm fucking kicking the fucking door of the room.
Okay, that's a good story. See what I mean? Huge respect. The dude is such a good storyteller. Great storyteller.
Car, and I'm trying to yank the fucking door off. And Mark is looking around. He's already, Bobby's already been mumbling half the fucking trip, and Stan's playing with bugs, and I'm trying to drag the fucking door off the rental car, and he's thinking, what is the matter with these fucking psychopathic motherfuckers I've chosen to ride with? And he didn't say anything because, he's the new kid and just happy to be there. But it had to register on him that maybe I'll get a car over here from now on instead of having to ride with these guys again.
Know your role.
It may have been funnier you had to be there.
No, that's a good story.
Maybe you're glad you weren't there.
That's a good story. I enjoy that stuff.
As a matter of fact, there are, and I see the books that are almost sold out, by the way. I believe I've heard that. They're almost sold out. The books, there's a chapter on ribs and road stories. It's called Lots of Ants and Other Ribs. The Midnight Express were fucking hilarious to ride with because Bobby had his own, fucking style. I mean, he was the simple guy. He was the guy that would do the simple ribs. Like, you'd have a soft drink cup from McDonald's, and you'd have a straw in it, and it'd be full. You'd get out to take a piss at a gas station, he'd tie a knot in the bottom of the straw and feed it back through, so when you try to take a drink, your head would cave in.
Sometimes the simple things are the best.
Or he'd stop at the stores and get the fake vomit, right? Just to add milk. Or, fucking fake dog turds and shit. Stan would set up ribs. He would talk about things for a week to get your mind thinking about them. That's the Lots of Ants story that I won't fucking ruin. Dennis Condrey, there's one that ain't
you got to appreciate that when somebody's willing to put the time in for it.
On Steve Austin's podcast, but for the people who didn't hear it, Dennis Condrey was a tremendous worker. And by the way, has anybody seen the Mid-South Legends DVD that they just recently put out? A small smattering there. If you go back and look at that, there were so many great stars like Ted DiBiase and Junkyard Dog and all these top
JYD.
names. But Ted was young at the time, and JYD was a great personality, but never actually a great in-ring worker per se. Great performer, but not a great worker. But Dennis Condrey doesn't get the credit that he deserves. If you go back and watch that DVD and all those matches, you will not find anybody smoother, anybody better, anybody more in tune with their body language and the psychology and always being in the right place at the right time, even Bobby Eaton, than Dennis Condrey.
Now, it's funny because I remember Dennis Condrey's name, and I've been, thanks to this business, been hit on the head with a lot of objects that are not made or designed to be crushed against your skull. I remember Dennis Condrey's name, but I can't picture him. And now I kind of want to,
but also
just on my own, I want to go back and watch some of this tape.
He still is a funny motherfucker. He's one of those guys that he didn't talk openly to fans because he didn't come up from that generation. But if you get him off by himself with the boys, he is a hilarious motherfucker. He cracks me up every time. And the funniest
I
thing
like knowing this stuff too.
Before he was a member of the Midnight Express,
the guys were really like.
His partner was named Phil Hickerson. They were the top tag team in Tennessee. They went from the Nick Goulas territory to the Knoxville territory to the Memphis territory. They were always the champions, always the main event team. And Phil was this big, raw-boned country boy with a big belly. And Dennis was the younger guy that took a lot more bumps. And they both had bleached blonde hair at the time, even though they were by no means either effeminate-looking or good-looking. But
I can identify with that
not
being good-looking thing.
Who was this old-time Japanese wrestler, and he was like God in Tennessee. And Tojo was also very homophobic. And so he would look and he...
Back in the day, that was very, very commonplace. I don't need to tell you stories about it. Trust me, it was very commonplace.
See, Dennis and Phil had big lips on the ass of their trunks, and they had their hair bleached blonde, and they would do the old heel deal where when one of them would take a bump and the baby face would be fired up, they'd go and they'd hug each other.
That's
and
good,
so Dennis
good shit.
somehow
Good work.
managed to convince Phil Higgerson one day in Louisville, Kentucky, that it would be a good idea to rib Tojo Yamamoto.
Oh, boy, I remember
when
Tojo.
Tojo came down the stairs from the ring after his match into the locker room. As he turned the corner, Phil would be down on his knees in front of Dennis, and Dennis would have his trunks down, and it would look like...
Wow. That's a quality rib right there. Oh, shit. And some of those guys, well, I only know Tojo Yamamoto, of course, by reputation. But just in general, there are some guys that would really snap on that.
That Phil was about to blow Dennis, right? And Tojo would just be mortified, right? Because he was very homophobic. Phil bought into this bullshit. So they had a lookout ready, right?
Boy.
And they got the word when Tojo was coming down the stairs.
I'm anxious to know what
and
Yamamoto
Phil
did.
Down on his knees, and Dennis has his tights down around his knees. And then Dennis even said, just have your mouth open. Where
Jesus Christ.
Looks like
hey, they're committing to the gimmick.
Ready to do this, right? And
this
so
is
now
commitment.
Tojo's coming, and this is going to be a great rib on Tojo. And naturally, Phil wants to see Tojo's face when he sees this. So as he's like this, he's looking that way, like that, so he can see the big pop. As soon as Tojo came around the corner, Dennis grabbed the back of Phil's head and shoved his dick all the way down his throat.
Oh, shit. That's...
And Dennis said his tongue felt like sandpaper. And Henderson came up off his knees.
That's a great story.
They'd been good friends. They rode everywhere. He chased Dennis out the back door of the Louisville Gardens and 3 blocks down the street at night in their tights. He didn't speak to him for a week. They had to have matches where they wouldn't speak to each other. So we call that the classic example
That's
of
a
the
great
double
story.
reverse rib. Where
Yeah.
the person that you think is you're ribbing, is actually an innocent bystander, while the person doing the ribbing gets ribbed. Reverse rib. So remember that.
Great story. That's wow.
And also, if
that
anybody ever tells you it's a good idea to act like you're blowing
rib.
somebody, it probably isn't.
Unless you actually are into the idea of blowing that person, it would probably be best to just steer clear of that rib altogether. That's a great story. This is why I do love listening to that guy. Again, I got no hate at all for Jim Cornette. Is he a polarizing figure? Sure. But so what? He's fun to listen to. That was good stuff.